What if the very people closest to you, the ones who say they care, are the ones unconsciously holding you back? What if your potential isn't buried beneath failure, but beneath approval? The craving for it, the addiction to it. From the moment you were born, the world started whispering in your ear, be like us, do what we do, don't stand out too much, don't think too big. And if you listen long enough, you begin to shrink, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, until one day you can no longer hear your own voice beneath the roar of everyone else's expectations. But here's the truth they won't tell you. You will never find peace, power, or purpose until you silence them, all of them, and listen only to yourself. You must walk away from the noise, not out of rebellion, but out of necessity. The crowd does not care about your destiny. They only care that you remain predictable, familiar, someone who doesn't threaten their comfort. But you were born for more than that. Ask yourself, who are you when no one's opinion is in the room? What dreams surface when no one's watching? What visions call to you when you're not performing for their applause? That's the real you. And the real you is dangerous to a world addicted to sameness. So this is the moment, the turning point, the hour where you reclaim your identity, your focus, your life. From this point forward, you are no longer here to explain yourself, to justify your path, or to apologize for your fire. You are here to focus on one thing, you. Let me ask you something most people never dare to answer honestly. When was the last time you made a decision without seeking someone else's approval first? Think about it. Before you act, you hesitate. Before you speak, you calculate. Before you dream, you filter it through their eyes, their fears, their rules, their imagined version of what's acceptable. And in doing so, you abandon your power. Understand this. The need to be understood is the first chain. The need to be liked is the second. And by the time you've collected a lifetime of nods and smiles and empty validation, you've built yourself a prison, one brick at a time. And the worst part? They'll congratulate you for it. They'll call you sensible, humble, mature. But inside, you'll feel the quiet death of your own voice. Let me be clear. Greatness is not democratic. Purpose is not found in consensus. Power does not announce itself with permission. If you are waiting for a green light from the crowd, you'll wait forever, because the crowd never gives you permission to become more than them. If you want to live fully, deeply, unapologetically, you must become immune to opinion. You must become a fortress, not cold, not distant, but impenetrable. Because the second you let in their doubts, their noise, their smallness, you shrink back into a version of yourself that fits their comfort and kills your calling. So stop waiting for agreement. Stop looking over your shoulder. There is no savior coming, no cheerleader, no magical voice that will say, now it's your turn. That voice has to be your own, and it has to be loud enough to drown out everything else. They will call you selfish the moment you stop living for them. Not because you are, but because your self-respect threatens their illusion of control. You see, most people aren't angry at your decisions. They're angry that your decisions make them question their own. When you begin to focus on yourself, really focus, the people who benefited from your self-neglect will feel exposed. And instead of rising with you, they'll try to pull you back. Not always with harsh words, sometimes with subtle guilt, a sigh, a raised eyebrow, a comment laced with concern. You've changed. Yes, of course you've changed, because you're not here to remain who you were just to make someone else feel secure. You are here to evolve. And evolution requires isolation. You can't transform in the same environment that convinced you to settle. You can't rise while tethered to the hands of those who fear your ascent. You must retreat, not forever, but long enough to remember who you are without their influence. There is a sacred silence that lives on the other side of withdrawal, a silence where your soul speaks clearly and loudly. In that silence, clarity sharpens, direction strengthens, and your real life, the one buried beneath compromise and conformity, begins to emerge. You don't need to explain it to anyone. You don't need to announce your process. You just need to protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. The moment you stop scattering your focus to meet every demand, every opinion, every invitation to argue, is the moment you start winning. Not publicly, but internally. And that is where true power is born. They want you distracted, not because they're evil, but because they're addicted to escape. And they need company, so they dangle noise in front of you, endless scrolling, shallow conversations, pointless drama disguised as connection. And every time you take the bait, you forget your mission. Every time you pick up the phone instead of your purpose, you fall just a little further away from the life you were meant to build. Let me remind you, focus is a sacred force. Not everyone deserves access to it. Not every conversation deserves your energy. Not every problem is yours to solve. You were not built to respond to the world's chaos. You were built to create something the world has never seen. But creation requires stillness, discipline, separation, the kind of internal quiet that terrifies people who can't stand to be alone with themselves. And that's exactly why you must learn to do it. Solitude is not a punishment. It's a weapon. It sharpens the mind. It clears the fog. It exposes the lies you've been told and the ones you've told yourself. Only in solitude can you hear the truth that burns beneath the noise. You were meant to live deliberately. Every choice, every step, every habit must align with the person you're becoming, not the person others are comfortable with. So shut the door, turn down the volume of the world, and listen, not with your ears, but with your conviction. What must you do? Who must you become? The answers are already inside you, but you'll never hear them if you keep letting everyone else speak louder than your own soul. There will come a moment, and maybe it's now, where you realize that your life is no longer about pleasing people. It's about alignment, precision, purpose. And when that realization hits, something inside you breaks. But it's not weakness. It's the shell. The shell they built around you with years of be realistic. Don't get ahead of yourself. That's not how the world works. That shell was never yours. It was stitched together with fear, shaped by small minds, and sealed with the approval of the average. But you were never average. You were just asleep. Now you're waking up, and waking up is violent. It means the dreams you once chased for validation suddenly look meaningless. The people you once admired start to look like cages, and the life you've been living begins to feel like someone else's story, a script you've been performing, not writing. And now you pick up the pen. Now you write your own damn script, with fire, with clarity, with defiance if you have to, because nobody gets to define you unless you hand them the chalk. And that hand of yours, it's done reaching out for permission. Let the world think you're distant. Let them say you've changed. Let them question your silence. You don't owe them answers. You owe yourself results. There is a sacred rebellion in choosing yourself, not loudly, not recklessly, but fully. Because when you stop seeking permission and start trusting your inner voice, you become untouchable. And that's what they fear most. A mind that can't be swayed, a spirit that can't be tamed, a person who belongs fully to themselves. That's you now. And this is just the beginning. You want freedom? Then stop giving away your power in the currency of approval. Every time you hesitate because someone might not understand, you weaken your own signal. Every time you delay your vision because someone you barely respect might disapprove, you slow the momentum that was already trying to carry you forward. You weren't put here to be understood. You were put here to be real. Real is messy. Real is misunderstood. Real is inconvenient for those who prefer you polished and predictable, but real is power. And when you choose to be real radically, relentlessly, you become unstoppable. You want to know why most people never reach their potential? Because they're still chasing applause in a world that only claps for conformity. But the great ones, the rare ones, the ones who rise, They ignore the noise. They walk through ridicule, through misunderstanding, through silence, and they keep going. Not because it's easy, but because the alternative is death. A quiet death of the spirit that happens when you betray yourself one compromise at a time. And you've already compromised enough. Now it's time to walk differently, think differently, speak differently. You don't owe anyone a watered-down version of yourself to make them feel safe. You owe yourself everything you've been suppressing, every bold idea, every buried instinct, every silent knowing that says you were born to rise. So let them talk. Let them misunderstand you while they're watching your building, while they're doubting your becoming. And one day, not for revenge, but for truth, they'll look up and realize they were never meant to understand you, because you were never meant to follow. You were meant to lead. Leadership doesn't begin when others follow you. It begins when you decide finally to follow yourself. That inner command, that deep conviction that says, this is who I am and this is where I'm going, that's the spark. That's the fire. And that's where everything changes. But most people never get there. Do you know why? Because they can't bear to be alone in their truth. They'd rather be surrounded in lies than isolated in authenticity. They'd rather be accepted by many for who they are not than rejected by a few for who they truly are. And that is the slowest kind of death. You were never meant to live with your soul locked behind a smile that pleases everyone else but you. You were meant to erupt with purpose, with clarity, with certainty. That kind of certainty terrifies people. Not because you're wrong, but because they've never seen someone own themselves so fully. But that's your task now, to become undeniable. Not by shouting, not by proving, but by being. When you walk with purpose, when your mind is no longer split in 1,000 directions trying to please the world, your presence changes. People feel it. They don't know what's different. They just know they can't manipulate you anymore. That's the power of inner focus. That's what happens when you ignore the crowd and align with your core. You become a force, not one that needs recognition, not one that begs for validation, but one that builds, moves, creates, with or without applause. Because once you've heard the voice inside and chosen to trust it, you'll never need theirs again. There is a silence more powerful than 1,000 voices, the silence of someone who no longer needs to be understood. That silence speaks volumes. It says, I've made peace with being different. I've made peace with being doubted. I've made peace with walking alone, because I'd rather walk alone in truth than be surrounded by those who need me to shrink. Most people are terrified of that kind of silence, so they fill it with noise, with distractions, with shallow talk and endless scrolling. Anything to avoid being confronted by their own unlived potential. But you're not here to escape. You're here to confront, to face yourself fully in flaws, fears, power, brilliance, and not flinch. Because when you sit long enough in that silence, something begins to happen. The false identities start to crumble. The masks peel away, and what's left is real. A self that doesn't need permission. A mind that doesn't seek refuge in excuses. A spirit that's finally ready to lead. You will lose people in that process. You will outgrow conversations, relationships, entire versions of yourself. Let them fall away. You are not here to carry everyone. You are here to carry your mission, and missions are heavy. They require clarity, solitude, and obsession, not the kind that burns you out, but the kind that burns away every lie that ever said you weren't enough. Ignore everyone who tells you to slow down, tone it down, be less. You weren't born to dim. You were born to burn. And from that fire, you will rise. Not to prove, not to please, but because it is who you are. They will call it selfish when you finally choose yourself. Let them. Let them misunderstand. Let them whisper. Let them fall away like autumn leaves. Because the deeper truth is this: you cannot pour from an empty vessel. You've tried, haven't you? tried to be everything to everyone, tried to keep the peace, tried to be the dependable one, the strong one, the one who never asks, only gives. But what did it cost you? Your time, your energy, your dreams, your identity. And now you stand at the edge of a choice to keep feeding everyone else while starving your own soul, or to draw the line, not in anger, but in awareness, because you've finally seen it for what it is. A life lived for others' comfort is no life at all. You must become unapologetic, not cruel, not careless, but clear, crystal clear about who you are, what you want, and what you will no longer accept. Because the moment you decide to reclaim your life, you'll feel resistance. Not from the universe, but from the people who benefited from your self-abandonment. They'll say you've changed. Good. That means it's working. You are not here to sacrifice your becoming for their approval. You are not here to dilute your fire so they can sit closer without getting burned. You are here to light the way, and that light requires fuel, the fuel of solitude, focus, discipline, and truth. So guard it, nurture it, and never again dim it for anyone who refuses to grow, because the ones who are meant to walk with you won't need your light to be small. They'll bring their own fire. There is a cost to choosing yourself, but the cost of not choosing yourself is far greater. You see, one day you will wake up and realize that time has no sympathy. It does not pause for indecision. It does not comfort you while you people please your purpose away. Time keeps moving, whether you're building your dream or burying it. So let me ask you, how much longer will you delay your life waiting for someone else to believe in it first? Their belief doesn't make it real. Yours does. When you decide, truly decide, that your life is worth building on your terms, something inside you clicks. And it's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's solid, unshakable. It's the quiet, grounded force of a person who knows where they're going and doesn't flinch when misunderstood. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to gather a committee to validate your instinct. You just need to trust that the pull you feel toward more is not ego. It's your soul remembering who you are. The opinions of others, they're echoes, but your conviction, that's a voice, a living force. And when you follow that voice, when you align your actions, your habits, your focus with that internal signal, you stop chasing life and start commanding it. That's what focus gives you. It's not just concentration, it's spiritual alignment. It's identity alignment. It's the courage to say, I'd rather walk alone in truth than be surrounded in compromise. So walk alone if you must. And if the silence gets loud, let it. Because in that silence, you will meet the version of yourself that's been waiting all along. Do not fear the silence that comes when you walk away from the noise. That silence is sacred. It is the doorway to every breakthrough you've ever craved. Because until you disconnect from the chaos of expectation, you cannot hear the guidance within. And that inner guidance, that instinct, that knowing, it's not random. It's the compass you were born with, but you've been talked out of it, haven't you? Talked out of your gut, talked out of your brilliance, talked out of your edge, and in its place they gave you templates, lives that look good on the outside but feel hollow when you wake up in the middle of the night wondering, is this all there is? Number, this isn't all there is. There is a version of you, more potent, more present, more precise, that can only be born in the absence of external influence. You have to strip it all away. The borrowed dreams, the forced timelines, the inherited fears. Only then can you begin. Begin what? Begin the life that answers to you. The life where you don't need to perform to be loved. Where your value isn't measured in productivity or popularity. Where your mornings are quiet and intentional, not rushed by obligation. Where your power doesn't scream. It hums with the energy of someone who knows who they are, knows what they came here to do, and knows that nothing is more important than protecting that clarity. So protect it. Build your world around it. Let everything else fall away. Because when you finally stop bending to fit a world that was never designed for your truth, you start building one that is. The reason most people never transform is simple. They won't sit still long enough to hear the truth about themselves. They keep moving, keep busy, keep distracted. Because stillness reveals everything. It strips away the performance. It reveals the gap between who you are and who you pretend to be. It shows you the promises you've made to yourself and broken quietly, the dreams you've shelved, the gifts you've buried under practicality and fear. And that confrontation, that's the beginning of power. You cannot build an extraordinary life on a foundation of lies, not lies you tell others, and certainly not the lies you tell yourself. So pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself the question no one else will ask you. Am I living a life that's true to me, or one that simply offends the fewest people? If that question burns, good. That's your soul waking up. That discomfort is sacred. Don't numb it. Don't explain it away. Don't bury it under another to-do list. Let it burn. Let it clear the path. Let it incinerate the attachments that were never yours to carry, because on the other side of that fire is freedom. Not the kind that looks good on a highlight reel, but the kind that lets you sleep at night. The kind that makes you magnetic. The kind that brings peace, even in the face of rejection, because you are finally aligned with your own damn life. And once you taste that alignment, there's no going back. You stop asking, will they understand? And you start saying, it doesn't matter. You don't need more opinions, you need more conviction. Because the truth is, most opinions are just projections, reflections of someone else's fear disguised as advice. You ask for feedback, hoping they'll see your vision, but they can't. Not because your vision is flawed, but because it wasn't given to them, it was given to you. You were the one who felt that pull in the quiet hours of the night. You were the one who saw something different when the world tried to hand you the same script, and now you're at a crossroads. Build your life based on their understanding, or build it based on your own knowing. Let me be blunt. If you keep looking outside yourself for validation, you will build a life that pleases everyone, except you. And when that day comes, when you realize your whole existence was designed by consensus instead of courage, it will be too late to undo the years you gave away for the sake of being accepted. Don't let that happen. Trust your voice, even when it shakes, even when it defies logic, even when it offends those who preferred you quiet. That voice inside you is ancient. It is wise. It is primal. It does not need a second opinion. It only needs your attention. So give it, not someday, not after another distraction, not when you feel ready, now, right now, because the life you're meant to live doesn't wait for permission. It waits for decision. And decision is born the moment you stop explaining yourself and start choosing yourself. Do not confuse being liked with being respected. The world will cheer for your charm, but it bows only to your clarity. And clarity demands solitude, not forever, but long enough to separate your authentic voice from the noise they've stuffed into your mind since you were a child. You were trained to blend in, to obey, to follow a path paved by the fears of those who came before you. But you were never meant to follow blindly. You were meant to carve, to disrupt, to question. And that questioning begins when you turn inward and ask, what do I know that no one else taught me? Because buried beneath all the programming is a core truth that belongs only to you, not your parents, not your peers, not your culture. And when you find it, it will feel dangerous. Why? Because it unhooks you from the system. You stop being predictable. You stop being useful to those who needed you to remain small. And in that moment, they will try to pull you back with love, with guilt, with logic. They'll say, be careful, don't risk too much. You've got a good thing going. But good enough is the enemy of greatness. And you weren't born for good enough. You were born to rise beyond the ceiling they built for you, even if that means being the only one standing in a room that once cheered your name. Because the applause fades, But purpose thunders through your bones until the day you die. And that's why you must choose it. Choose you, again and again, even when no one claps. Especially then. You will not rise by being agreeable. You will not transform by being easy to digest. The world does not reward the quiet suffocation of your truth. It rewards conviction, presence, unapologetic alignment. The kind that says, I know who I am, and I won't fold to make others more comfortable. Now understand this. The most dangerous force in the world is a person who no longer needs to be liked. Because once that need dies, what's left is freedom. You stop editing yourself. You stop playing small in rooms you've outgrown. You stop dimming your thoughts, your voice, your power, just to keep the peace, because you finally realize that peace built on self-abandonment isn't peace at all. It's prison. And you've been locked inside it long enough. So now you step out. You let go of the masks, the social acrobatics, the compulsive need to be the version of yourself that gets the least resistance. That version may win popularity, but it loses everything else. Real power is quiet. It doesn't demand. It doesn't posture. It simply is. And when you walk in that power, when you stop asking and start becoming, the world may not know what to do with you, but your soul will finally exhale. This is what it means to focus on yourself, not selfishly, but sacredly. You are not here to entertain the expectations of a world that doesn't even know what it truly wants. You are here to know yourself, master yourself, and become the kind of person who doesn't flinch when the world misunderstands you. Because greatness is not understood in its early stages. It's resisted, rejected, and ridiculed until it becomes undeniable. Let them call you obsessed. Let them say you're too intense, too focused, too withdrawn. That's what they say when they no longer recognize you, when your transformation threatens the comfort of their stagnation. But obsession, that's just what clarity looks like from the outside. Because when you finally know what you're building, when you've silenced the noise, burned the distractions, and aligned with your deeper mission, your energy condenses. It sharpens. It stops leaking into meaningless places. And those who still live diluted lives won't understand it. That's fine. You're not here to be understood. You're here to build a life so aligned, so exact, so deliberately forged from your inner compass that you no longer wake up wondering what it's all for. You know, you feel it in your bones. There's a rhythm to your day, a discipline to your choices, a sacred commitment to your time. Not because you're rigid, but because you're awake. And when you're awake, you no longer tolerate what the asleep call normal. You outgrow the endless conversations about nothing. You outgrow waiting for motivation. You outgrow explaining your vision to people who've never dared to create their own. And instead, you work, you craft, you refine, you move, quietly, precisely, unapologetically. Because now you understand. Your life is not a democracy. It is a declaration made silently through your habits, your focus, and your refusal to settle. So let them talk. While they're speculating, you're building. And when you emerge, not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right, you'll realize something. You never needed them to understand. You only needed you to decide. The moment you stop negotiating with your lower self, your entire life begins to shift. You know the one I'm talking about, that inner version of you who whispers compromise when you're tired, who says, just skip today, just lower the standard. No one will know, but you will know. And that knowing is the difference between a life that expands and a life that repeats. See, most people never escape their loop, not because they're incapable, but because they keep entertaining the part of themselves that prefers comfort over growth. That inner traitor that disguises laziness as self-care, procrastination as patience, and avoidance as wisdom. But when you focus on yourself, truly focus, you start to see it for what it is, a parasite feeding off your potential, and you cut it off. Not with rage, but with resolve. You stop debating your standards. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop giving energy to the mental noise that says, maybe I'm asking for too much. You're asking for alignment. You're asking for a life that fits your soul, not your excuses, and that life demands a new identity, one that does not flinch in the face of resistance, one that does not fold under loneliness, one that understands solitude is the training ground of kings, because when no one is watching and you still choose the harder path, the path of growth, the path of fire, that's when you become dangerous. That's when you stop hoping to be inspired and start becoming the kind of person who inspires just by existing. So kill the negotiations, kill the noise, and walk forward like you were meant to, clear, focused, and utterly unstoppable. The world teaches you to wait. Wait until you're sure. Wait until it's safe. Wait until they approve. And if you listen, you'll spend your life in the waiting room, watching other people live out the courage you buried beneath hesitation. But here's the truth. You were never waiting on the world. You were waiting on yourself to finally wake up, to finally break the spell of self-doubt, and to realize that everything you've been looking for in them has always been hidden in you. Power doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself, choosing to start before you're ready, choosing to move even when it's uncomfortable, choosing to believe in your vision when no one claps, when no one watches, when no one understands. And that's the moment everything shifts. Because when you choose yourself, you stop leaking energy in search of validation. You stop begging life to give you signs. You become the sign. You become the fire. Let others stay comfortable. Let them laugh. Let them doubt. Let them talk. Your job is not to convince them. Your job is to become so focused, so aligned, so deeply immersed in your own evolution that by the time they realize what you're doing, it's already done. You've already built the life. You've already become the version of yourself they said was unrealistic. And when they ask you how you did it, you'll say the words that terrify those still asleep. I stopped asking. I started becoming. That's the power of ignoring everyone and focusing on you. That's the doorway to everything you were born to claim. There is a sacred violence in becoming, not the kind that wounds others, but the kind that tears away everything in you that was never real. The false identities, the forced smiles, the brittle, people-pleasing habits that kept you likable and hollow. You will have to break parts of yourself to find the truth. And that breaking, that's not weakness. That's rebirth. Because to rise into who you truly are, you must first destroy the version of you that made everyone else comfortable. You must bury the persona built from other people's projections. You must grieve the life you built from fear so you can finally walk into the one built from power. And power, real power, begins with one decision. No more pretending, no more shrinking, no more waiting to be chosen. You choose you, not just once, but every day, in every thought, in every decision. You choose yourself when you wake up and commit to your path, even if no one notices. You choose yourself when you say no to the party, no to the noise, no to the things that dilute your vision. You choose yourself when you keep your word to your future, not because it's easy, but because it's yours. And in a world that constantly demands you give yourself away, choosing yourself becomes the most radical act of all. You want to know the secret to rising? It's not luck. It's not talent. It's focus. The kind of focus that ignores the crowd, silences the doubt, and builds brick by brick, even in silence, even in solitude, even when no one claps, especially then. You don't owe the world a performance. You owe yourself the truth. And the truth is this. You were never meant to live on borrowed dreams. You were never meant to wake up each morning chasing a version of success handed to you by people who never dared to define their own. So stop. Stop playing their game. Stop measuring your life by their metrics. Stop trading your authenticity for acceptance. Because every time you do, you die a little inside, quietly, invisibly, the kind of death no one sees, but you feel in the dullness, in the restlessness, in the ache that won't go away no matter how much you distract yourself. You know that ache? That's your soul telling you the life you're living is too small, too scripted, too edited, too polite, and it's time, past time, to burn it down. Not with recklessness, but with reverence, because what you're destroying isn't your life, it's the illusion of who you thought you had to be, and what you're building is real, built from your values, your discipline, your clarity, and yes, it will be misunderstood, yes, it will be lonely, yes, it will test you. But what's the alternative? A life of fitting in but never feeling fulfilled? A life of applause without peace? A life that looks good in pictures but feels like a prison when you're alone? Number, you were not born for that. You were born to break the mold, to break your own limits, to create a life that means something. And that life? It begins when you stop watching them and start watching yourself. You become powerful the moment you stop waiting, waiting for a sign, waiting for support, waiting for the perfect time. Let me tell you something you already know deep down. There is no perfect time. There is only now, raw, imperfect, full of unknowns. And that's exactly where transformation lives. Most people waste their lives in the waiting room of their dreams. They think clarity will come from thinking, that courage will arrive through watching, that change will happen without discomfort. But clarity comes from movement. Courage is built through action. And change? Change demands a price. You pay it with focus, with isolation, with the discipline to walk forward when the world around you stands still. Ignore the ones who say, slow down, you're doing too much. What they really mean is, you're reminding me of everything I'm not doing. Ignore the ones who say, you've changed. Of course you have. That's the whole point. You're not here to repeat yourself. You're here to reinvent again and again until the outer world matches the fire you feel within. And that reinvention requires obsession. Not the shallow kind built on ego, but the sacred kind built on purpose. The kind of obsession that blinds you to distractions, burns through excuses, and brings you face to face with the version of yourself you were always meant to become. So stop watching them. Stop measuring your speed against their hesitation. Stop explaining your hunger to those who are full on mediocrity. This is your life, your path, your war, and no one else can walk it for you. Part 22. There's a moment in every journey when the old world tries to pull you back, not with force, but with familiarity. An old friend calls, an old habit creeps in, an old version of yourself whispers, "It wasn't so bad, was it? Maybe we were fine there." But you weren't fine. You were surviving. You were dimming your light to fit into spaces that were never built for your fire. And now that you've had a taste, a glimpse of what it feels like to live aligned, focused, and unshakably true to yourself, you can't go back. Not without betraying something sacred. Because once you begin to evolve, everything that doesn't rise with you becomes heavy, and it will hurt, letting go of people, places, habits that once defined you. But don't mistake that pain for a sign to stop. That pain is growth. It's the tearing away of everything that can't come with you. The world will call it cold. They'll call it ruthless. But you'll know what it really is, clarity. And clarity cuts. It cuts through the noise, through guilt, through the fog of people-pleasing and the weight of what will they think? Because the truth is, they're not thinking about you. They're too busy surviving their own storms to truly understand yours. So stop waiting for them to get it. Stop pausing your process for their approval. You are not here to be understood by the crowd. You are here to be remembered by history. And that kind of legacy, it begins with a season of silence, a season where you stop performing and start becoming. If you want a life that's uncommon, you must adopt an uncommon focus. You can't consume what everyone else consumes, do what everyone else does, think how everyone else thinks, and expect to stand out. Excellence is not an accident. It is not inherited. It is forged. Forged in quiet hours while the world is distracted. Forged in solitude when no one is cheering and you keep showing up anyway. Forged in brutal honesty, not with others, but with yourself. Ask yourself this: where am I still performing? Where are you pretending to be okay? Where are you compromising, diluting, softening your truth just to avoid rocking the boat? That's where your power is leaking, because focus isn't just about time, it's about truth. It's about building a life so congruent with who you really are that even your silence speaks volumes. And when you start doing that, when your decisions match your desires and your actions match your destiny, you become a magnet for transformation, not overnight, not in bursts, but with steady, unshakable momentum. Let them call it boring. Let them call it extreme. They don't see the vision. You do. And if you betray that vision just to be more palatable, you lose everything you were meant to build. So no, you won't be accessible to everyone. You won't be understood in every room, but you'll be aligned. And in a world that lives split in 1,000 directions, alignment is the ultimate rebellion. You will be tested, not once, not twice, but constantly. Every time you decide to level up, life will present a choice: retreat into comfort or rise into discomfort. And the ones who rise, they do it with focus, not motivation. Motivation fades. Inspiration fades. But focus, forged from purpose, clarity, and identity, endures. When you know who you are and why you're here, you stop chasing dopamine and start cultivating discipline. You stop bouncing between trends and start building principles. You stop needing the world to cheer you on because you've become your own source of momentum. That's the shift. That's the moment you stop being reactive and start being relentless. Let them call you intense. Let them say you're obsessed. That's only because they've never tasted the sweetness of full alignment, the sacred peace that comes when your habits, your thoughts, and your purpose all point in the same direction. That's what focus gives you, not just results, but freedom. Because when your focus is clean, your decisions become easy. You don't wonder if you should go out tonight. You don't negotiate with laziness. You don't pause your growth to soothe someone else's insecurity. You move with clarity, with precision, with zero apology. Because you finally realize that your time, your energy, your attention, they are currency. And if you keep spending them on what doesn't matter, you'll go bankrupt in the only account that truly matters, your potential. Protect that account. Invest it wisely. And watch your life compound in ways they said were impossible. They will tempt you to slow down, to soften your pace, to dilute your edge, not out of malice, but out of fear, because your intensity exposes their complacency. When you begin to focus, truly focus, you disrupt the balance they've grown comfortable in. You become a mirror, reflecting back everything they've chosen not to become. And that mirror, it makes them uncomfortable. So they'll project, they'll mock, they'll say, you're too serious, too driven, too much. Let them. Because too much is exactly what it takes to break free from average. You're not here to be digestible. You're not here to be palatable. You're here to become. And becoming is not neat. It's not pretty. It's not designed to make others feel safe. It's disruptive. It's bold. It's uncomfortable, not just for them, but for you. You'll doubt yourself. You'll feel lonely. You'll wonder if it's all worth it. And that's when you must remember, comfort is the enemy of calling. Comfort wants you asleep. Calling wants you awake. Comfort wants you numb. Calling wants you on fire. So choose discomfort. Choose the friction. Choose the path that demands more of you, not less. Because the version of you that's waiting on the other side of this process, the one who leads, commands, impacts, they're not built through consensus. They're built through commitment. And commitment requires a ruthless filter, a refusal to let anything that does not serve your highest self stay in your life 1 second longer. This is focus, and this is freedom. Stop asking people who've never built anything how to build your life. Stop giving weight to opinions formed from fear, shaped by comfort, reinforced by mediocrity. You are not them. And your path, your real path, won't make sense to them. It's not supposed to. They didn't feel what you felt at midnight when the world was silent and your soul screamed for more. They didn't hear the whisper that told you this life, this version of life you were living in, wasn't it? So why are you waiting for them to validate what they never experienced? You want to rise, you want to lead, you want to become untouchable, then you have to become selective. Selective with your time, selective with your circle, selective with your energy. Focus doesn't just mean doing more, it means cutting deeper. Cutting out the noise, the false friendships, the rituals of self-sabotage dressed up as normal life. Every great reinvention begins with subtraction, not just of habits, but of identities. The version of you that needed to be liked, gone. The version of you that couldn't say no, buried. The version of you that settled, done. And in their place, a new figure rises, focused, forged, and free. Not just free to chase a dream, but free from the prison of needing to explain that dream to anyone, because now you see it, and that's all that matters. The hardest part isn't starting, it's staying. Staying locked in when no one's watching, when the excitement fades, when the voices get loud again, and the old temptations knock on your door. That's where most people quit, not because they're weak, but because they never trained their mind to remain sovereign. Understand this, focus is not a burst of intensity. It's a daily declaration, a quiet war you wage each morning against the chaos that wants to own your time, your mind, your mission. And that war, it's won in your rituals. It's won in the moment you reach for your journal instead of your phone. It's won when you say no to noise and yes to silence. It's won when you choose clarity over comfort, again and again, until it becomes who you are. Because when you live focused, you begin to embody something different. You stop speaking so much because your presence now says everything. You stop explaining your boundaries because they're etched in how you move. You stop chasing what isn't yours because you're too busy becoming what is. Let them call it extreme. Let them call it antisocial. You're not avoiding life. You're building one brick by brick, thought by thought, standard by standard. And when they finally see what you've built, not just outside but inside, they'll ask how you did it, and you'll answer, not with arrogance, but with unshakable truth. I ignored everyone, and I focused on myself. They won't understand the hours you kept your promise in the dark. They won't see the nights you chose growth over sleep, purpose over comfort, discipline over distraction, but you will. And that's what matters, because this journey, this brutal, beautiful transformation, was never about proving anyone wrong. It was about proving yourself right, right to believe in more, right to become more, right to live without apology, without permission, without the constant choking need to be understood. And now you're no longer the same. You don't chase validation. You don't explain your boundaries. You don't shrink to fit spaces that once felt like home. You've outgrown them all. And that evolution didn't happen by accident. It happened because you made a decision most people are too scared to make. You chose to focus on yourself. In a world addicted to approval, you chose self-respect. In a world drowning in noise, you chose silence. In a world clinging to comfort, you chose growth. And that choice, it changed everything. So when they ask why you're so different, why you move the way you move, why your eyes don't wander, why your presence feels like power itself, and you won't need to say much, because when you truly focus on yourself, you become the proof, not in words, in results, in energy, in the way your life now speaks louder than their doubts ever could. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to dilute your presence just to survive the room. You were meant to command the room, not through arrogance, but through alignment. not by speaking louder, but by knowing exactly who you are. And now you do, because you've walked through the silence. You've sat with the discomfort. You've faced the truth, not the surface level truth, but the kind that rips away your excuses and shows you what you're really capable of. And it's more than they ever told you. It's more than your environment could model. It's more than your past tried to predict. It's limitless, but only if you protect it. Because the world will keep testing you with distractions, with drama, with every temptation to abandon your path for a quick hit of comfort. But you know better now. You've seen what it costs to chase applause. You've felt the emptiness of being liked but lost. So you don't bend anymore. You don't explain anymore. You move with calm, with fire, with sacred focus that can't be bought, shaken, or stolen. And in that movement, in that relentless devotion to your highest self, you become what they never saw coming, a person who doesn't need the world to make sense of them because they've already made sense of themselves. This is your moment, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when they finally understand. Now is when you choose silence over noise. Now is when you stop begging for approval and start commanding your destiny. Now is when you stop living like your time is unlimited and start acting like your life means something, because it does. Your breath is not an accident. Your fire is not random. Your instincts are not a glitch in the system. They are a compass forged deep in your spirit to guide you through the fog of mediocrity and into the mountain of your greatness. But you must climb. You must rise without applause. You must walk through misunderstanding, through solitude, through every temptation to quit and keep going. That's the cost of becoming. And that cost, it's worth it. Because on the other side of obedience to your soul is a power that no opinion can touch, a focus that no distraction can fracture, a purpose so clear, so alive, it hums in your bones and radiates through every decision you make. This is your reminder. You don't need permission. You don't need a cheerleader. You don't need one more sign from the outside. Everything you need has already been placed within you. So choose yourself. Focus ruthlessly. Build relentlessly. And let the world feel what happens when one person finally becomes undeniably themselves. This is your path. This is your proof. This is your power. The world makes way for those who dare to rise. Click the Rise button now to subscribe and claim the destiny waiting for you. Your time is now.